This wonderful subject of the intersecting of the history of Freemasonry and Mormonism has really caught my attention. I believe we can all explore this and find some very interesting commonality as well as differences between the subjects of Mormonism and Freemasonry. I know there's a lot of interesting assumptions at work that I'm discovering as both a Mormon and a Mason, and it's our common heritage, so I plan on exploring this really extensively. It's a fascinating subject, like the Revolutionary War or the American Civil War. It's part of our common heritage, so it's a good subject. I want to engage a little bit with some LDS scholars on this and possibly clear up some misunderstandings and some assumptions that I see at work. I know in some of the Mormon responses in the Mormon literature that I've been reading against some of the critics against Mormonism, who happen to bring up this wonderful subject of Freemasonry and the influence of Freemasonry on the Mormon Temple endowment, I'm noticing part of the strategy seems to me to be pointing out the differences between Freemasonry and Mormonism. The question is, are there differences between the Mormon endowment and the Freemasonic ritual? As a Mormon Mason, I would say absolutely, yes. But that does not refute the fact that there are also similarities. The question is, what do these mean? That's kind of a question I want to address in this series of videos I'm going to do. What these similarities between Freemasonry and Mormonism demonstrate, I believe, is that there truly was an influence of Freemasonry on Mormonism. What the differences refute, once again, I believe, because there are differences, absolutely. What I believe those refute is the concept that Joseph Smith simply stole Freemasonry wholesale and simply made it the Mormon endowment. And I believe it's that assumption of the critics that a lot of the LDS find uncomfortable, and I side with them, because that's a completely false assumption on the critics' part. On the other hand, the extreme that some Mormon scholars go to is also erroneous. They want to say that there were no influences whatsoever, and that's simply false too. The 5 points of fellowship, the hand grips, tokens, signs, penalties, you don't find that in the Methodism of Joseph Smith's day. You don't find it in the Lutheranism. You don't find it in any of the religions. But you absolutely find it in Freemasonry. And Joseph Smith had both very good Masons, his brother, Martin Harris, etc. He also had anti-Masons surrounding him. William W. Phelps, John C. Bennett, so on and so forth. Now, I think several of the LDS scholars, including Dan Brown, Daniel C. Peterson, William Hamblin, even Richard Bushman has discussed this. Michael W. Homer has discussed this. This idea of the similarities and differences between Mormonism and Freemasonry. Hamblin and Peterson and those LDS scholars, they are refuting Dan Vogel in his book, Joseph Smith, The Making of a Prophet, wherein he contends that absolutely everything about the Book of Mormon occurred in Joseph Smith's own mind and in his own environment, and that there's nothing authentic about the Book of Mormon, and that's what they're responding to. In the process, I think they go overboard a little bit about the significance of the influence of Freemasonry on Mormonism and the endowment. Matt Brown has done us a wonderful service of showing how through time in the 1830s, Joseph Smith received various different types of revelations, giving more and more information concerning a future upcoming endowment. His laboring assumption is that the endowment was entirely revealed by heaven vertically, and that there was absolutely no earthly or mortal influence through Freemasonry on the forms of the endowment. That I disagree with. I think there's obvious Masonic information in there. But that does not negate the fact that God was revealing to Joseph Smith a lot of the endowment. Joseph Smith was working with what was available through revelation. It's awful breezy up here on this rock cliff. I think what I want to do, in their analysis of John Brooks' arguments about the hermetic aspects of Mormonism and the Book of Mormon, and of course Brooks does bring in some Freemasonic parallels, in their discussion of the hermetic ideas, they bring out some themes on the parallels of Masonry that I think are very important to understand from the LDS point of view. In their book, in their article I should say, in the Farms Review of Books on the Book of Mormon, Volume 6, Number 2 for 1994, Brothers Bill Hamblin, Dan C. Peterson, and Davis Minton, I believe it's Davis Minton. Let me check real quick. George L. Minton, sorry George. They have a really powerful analysis of John Brooks' The Refiner's Fire, The Making of Mormon Cosmology, where Brooks attempts to bring in Hermeticism in early Mormonism and in the Book of Mormon and so on and so forth. And I think their analysis, their crushing refutation of the Hermetic elements and the alchemical elements in the Book of Mormon is very wonderful reading. You must read this. When they get to the Masonic parallels, they also have some very good points that I believe they should be given credit for. On the other hand, I honestly think they are following a couple of assumptions that there is an easy answer to. And I think they're hinting at that. What they're trying to do is show that John Brooks' theme that Joseph Smith simply absorbed all this hermetic information from his environment into his life and wrote the Book of Mormon with that in mind. And Mormonism was just basically hermetic. I don't think Brooke makes his argument stick at all, and these guys really take him apart on that. On the Masonic information, I think they have an interesting point on page 54. Following standard environmentalists' explanations of the origins of the LDS Temple endowment, Brooke maintains that there is overwhelming evidence of the continuity between Masonic and Mormon endowment symbolism. In fact, however, we find that the similarities are limited to only a few motifs, which can be understood in several different ways. And I'm in fundamental agreement with that. That's true. They can be. And even these few symbols, which seem similar, usually have a quite different meaning in the endowment from their counterparts in Masonry, and in ritual, the meaning of the symbol is all important. The same actions, gestures, etc., if understood as having a different interpretation, are not really the same ritual at all, because the meaning of the symbolism is different. Differing markedly from Freemasonry, the Mormon ceremonies have intense Christian relationship and very rich parallels throughout the Gospel and the Bible. Given this fact, it's not surprising that those followers of Joseph Smith who were intimately informed about both rituals were not disturbed by superficial similarities. So why are Mormons today disturbed by those superficial similarities? Their idea that the superficial similarities are superficial, however, is what I disagree with.